Hey y'all, welcome to CPM 2. This is Module 1, Lesson 5. We're going over subtracting integers. So, before we even subtract integers, let's just review what we do for adding integers. So, there's two different things that happen. Either the signs can be the same, so either positive and positive, or negative and negative. When they are the same, you are first going to add the numbers and then keep the sign. Okay, and a lot of times you'll hear this shortened to just add and keep. So here, because they're both this, on my example right here, because they're both the same sign, they're both positive, we're going to add these together. So 12 plus 8 is 20. And then we're going to keep the sign, which is positive. So my answer is just a 20. Over here, now I have negative and negative. So add these two numbers together as if those negatives weren't there. So I'm not looking at negative 12 and negative 8. If I'm not paying attention to those signs, just 12 plus 8 gives me 20 again. But because I'm keeping the sign, that makes this one a negative 20. Right? And think about this in terms of money. You spend $12 somewhere, and then you spend $8 somewhere else. How much are you in the hole? $20. Okay. The next thing is when the signs are different. So either positive and negative or negative then positive. When the signs are different, you are going to subtract the numbers and then you are going to keep the sign of the bigger number. So subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number. So on my examples down here, we have 12 plus a negative 8. So pretend like that's not a negative 8. Because they are opposite, we're going to subtract. So 12 minus 8 is 4. I'm going to keep the sign of the bigger number. Well, 12 is my bigger number and it's positive, so my answer is going to be positive. Now when I flip those signs, now I have negative 12 and a positive 8. So again, different signs. Subtract, and subtract as if that negative is not there. 12 minus 8 is 4, and you're keeping the sign of the bigger number, and in this case it's 12, which is negative. Okay, so that's our review of adding integers. Well, here's the good thing about adding and subtracting. Subtracting is going to follow the exact same rules as adding. So I am still using, if the sign is the same, we're adding and keeping. If the signs are different, we're subtracting and keeping the bigger number. So number 1, we got negative 6 minus 5. So first thing you have to ask, are my signs the same or are they different? This one, hopefully we see is the same, since you have a negative 6 and a negative 5. So therefore, we're going to add and keep the sign. So 6 plus 5 is 11. Keep that sign, so that makes that negative. B, negative 4 minus 10. Do I have the same sign or different sign? We have the same, so add those numbers together. 4 plus 10 is 14, and keep the sign, so that makes this final answer negative 14. C, 3 minus 15. Are my signs the same or are they different? This is the first one that we have on subtracting that's different. You've got a positive 3. If you don't see a number in front, it's known to be positive. and then a negative 15. So subtract your numbers. When you subtract, you always want to do your bigger number first. So I'm thinking 15 minus 3. So that gives me 12. And then keep the sign of the bigger number. My bigger number is this 15, which is negative. 11 minus 17. Do we have the same sign or different signs? Again, they're different, right? Nothing's in front of that 11, so that means it's positive. And then 17 is a negative. So I need to subtract, and we're always doing the big number minus the smaller number. So 17 minus 11 gives me 6. And then keep the sign of the bigger number. My bigger number is 17, which is negative. Now, E is the same thing, but if you kind of notice here, I don't know if my highlighting tool is going to work. Let's see. Okay, if you notice here, you have a double negative. You've got minus a negative 3. We can kind of clean that up from previous lessons. Minusing a negative 3. And when we read that as what is the opposite of negative 3. That turns into a plus. So now my problem here is 17 plus 3. That double negative turns into a plus. So now that I have cleaned this up some, now go back to our rules. Do we have the same sign or different signs? We have the same. So 17 plus 3. We've been doing this for forever now, right? That's just regular 17 plus a regular 3. It's going to give me 20. F, we got some cleaning up to do. We got that double negative again. So this becomes negative 20 plus 5. So do I have same signs or different signs? Well, we have a negative 20 and a positive 5. So I've got different signs. So subtract 20 minus 5 is 15, and we're keeping the sign of the bigger number, which is 20, and that is negative. Now, kind of notice something on this one. Notice that my negative 20 stayed negative 20 because you don't have a double negative in front of 20. I'm only changing where that double negative is. G, we got a double negative again, so let's clean that up. So it's going to be negative 5 again. I'm not changing that negative in front of the 5 because that's not where the double negative is. Negative 5 plus 19. So same signs or different signs? We have different. So subtract bigger minus the smaller one. So 19 minus 5 gives me 14. And then keep the sign of the bigger number. My bigger number is 19, and that is positive. Okay, and then last one, 11 minus 8. This is just normal subtraction that, again, we've been doing for years, just like 17 plus 3, right? That's just 11. You have $11. You spend 8. How much do you have now? That's 3. Okay, and I mean, you technically could use the rules for different, right? You've got a positive 11, since nothing's in front, a negative 8. So you subtract, which is 3, keep the sign of the bigger number, which is 11, right? But that's normal subtraction we've been doing for years, so don't it's hard to not second guess yourself, right? When we get all these rules, all these positives and negatives. Okay, so you can use that rule, but that's just what we've been doing for a while now. So, those are our rules for subtracting. There's some examples for subtracting. So now we got 2 more pages. We're going to kind of use this in some word problems and some expressions and stuff. So let's turn that page. It says translate the following phrase, then simplify. So find the difference of negative 15 and negative 10. So be careful with this. I have my two numbers, right? We have, I'll go ahead and highlight these. We have negative 15 and a negative 10. So I'm going to go ahead and write those first. Negative 15 and a negative 10. And what do I need to do with these two numbers? We need to find the difference. I'm going to scoot this down a little bit. But we're finding the difference. What does the difference mean? The difference is subtracting. So I'm going to go ahead and put parentheses around this negative 10 to separate my two negatives. But I want you to understand why we have those two negatives, right? This first one is there because I got to find the difference. The second negative comes from my number itself. Okay. So now we can clean this up. That double negative there right here becomes a plus. So we got negative 15 plus 10. Now that I've simplified this, I've cleaned it up, now use your rules. We have different signs, so I'm going to subtract. 15 minus 10 is 5. I'm going to keep the sign of the bigger number, which is 15, and it's negative. B, we need to subtract 7 from 3. So remember, when you see this word from, this is where you have to start your work at. So because I'm going from 3, we'll start with that 3. And it tells me that we are what? Subtracting 7. So same signs or different signs, but we have a positive 3 since there's nothing in front, and a negative 7, so we're going to subtract. 7 minus 3 is 4. And again, we're keeping the sign of the bigger number, which is 7, and it's negative. All right, objective B, we need to add and subtract integers. It says if a problem involves adding and subtracting more than 2 integers, you need to add or subtract from left to right. So we're just going to move through these from left to right. So going from left to right, I'm going to start, actually, before I start from left to right, look at your problem. Is there anything here that we can clean up or that we need to clean up? And yes, we have that double negative here. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite that double negative as a plus. So it means my problem now looks like 7 minus 8 plus 5 minus 1. Now I can move through this problem from left to right. So I'm going to start here. We have different signs. Because my signs are different, we're going to subtract. 8 minus 7 is 1. Keep the sign of the bigger number, which is at 8. Now I'm going to bring everything else down. So plus 5 minus the 1. Now we have this problem here. And it doesn't matter that I am moving to addition. Right now we're adding. It doesn't matter. You're still asking yourself, do you have the same signs or different signs? Because these are different again. You've got negative and a positive. Subtract. 5 minus 1 is 4. Keep the sign of the bigger number. 5 is bigger and it's positive. So bring down that -1. And this is subtraction we've been doing forever now. 4 minus 1 is 3. Okay, look at B. Is there anything we need to clean up on B? I see another double negative. So let's clean that up first. So we can rewrite everything else the way it was. So 7 plus -12 minus 3 and now plus 8. So now move through this problem from left to right. So first part here, 7 plus a -12. We have different signs, so we're going to subtract. 12 minus 7 is 5. Keep the sign of the bigger number. 12 is bigger, and it is negative. Bring down the rest. So -3 plus 8. Now I'm going to do this portion here. So -5 minus 3. You've got the same signs, so we're going to add them. 5 plus 3 is 8. And then keep the sign, so that's negative. Bring down your plus 8. -8 plus 8. Because these are opposite signs, you've got a negative and a positive, we're subtracting. So 8 minus 8 is 0. So because these are opposites, it zeroes out. Okay, and that would be different if you had something like -8 minus 8, right? And a lot of times we'll cancel those out and say that's 0, and that's wrong. On -8 minus 8, now you have the same sign, so you have to add. 8 plus 8 is 16, and then keep the sign, so negative. So be careful of when you're zeroing that and when you actually need to add those numbers. All right, now we're going to practice evaluating expressions by replacing values when replacing values that are integers. So you got x minus y. X is -3 and y is 9. So in place of this x, we got -3. Bring down your minus sign. And then what is my y? My y. So, do you have the same signs or different signs? They're the same, negative and negative. So we're going to add 3 plus 9 is 12 and keep the sign. This is another one where you got to be careful, like we had to be careful on A. We have 2a minus b. So remember that these two here, because they are next to each other, we are multiplying. So I have 2 times my a is 8. Okay, I'm bringing down this minus. Okay, that minus came from right here in my formula. We're minusing b, so minus. But then what does b equal? Well, b equals a -6. So we have to minus a -6. Okay, this minus came from here, but this minus came from here. So you have a double negative. So this double negative here becomes a plus. So it means I have 2 times 8 and now plus 6. So after we clean it up, now let's use our order of operations. So 2 times 8 is 16. Bring down your plus 6, and 16 plus 6 will give us 22. All right, let's flip that page. And we have one more page, kind of more of word problems. Example 5 says the highest point in the United States is the top of Mount McKinney at a height of 20,320 feet above the sea level. The lowest point is Death Valley, California, which is 282 feet below sea level. How much higher is Mount McKinney than Death Valley? All right, so because we want to know how much higher Mount McKinney is than Death Valley, we need to put those numbers in that order. So Mount McKinney is 20,320. Death Valley is a negative 282 because it's that many feet below, it's a negative, and it shows it right here in this diagram. And so the question becomes, do you add these two together or do you subtract? Because these are going in opposite directions, you've got one going up, one going down, we subtract these two. And so we'll put parentheses around that. When you add, it's something like whenever they tell you, you have a diver in the water and he goes down so many feet and then he goes down further so many feet. When you go in the same direction, that's when you add your numbers together. Okay, if you're going in the same direction, you add your numbers. But here, because I'm going in opposite directions, we're subtracting. So this double negative here does end up turning into a plus. So we have 20,320 plus 282. Add those together. 0 and 2 is 2. 2 and 8 is 10. So the 0 comes down, carry the 1. 2 and 3 makes 5, and then that 1 we carried is 6. 0 and nothing, and 2 and nothing, so that 20 just comes over. Okay, and we need units with this. What unit are we in? We're in feet. So how much higher is Mount McKinney than the Death Valley? It's 20,602 feet higher. Eight says, the bar graph shows monthly average temperatures in Fairbanks, Alaska. Notice that the negative temperature is illustrated by the bar below the horizontal line representing 0 degrees Celsius or Fahrenheit. Use this graph to answer the following questions. We need to find the difference in temperature between the months of November and December. So because they said November, then December, you got to put November first, then December. So my November temperature is 3 degrees. My December temperature is a negative 4 degrees. And it tells me to find the difference. The difference means to subtract. So again, we got a double negative here. So this becomes 3 plus 4. This is just regular adding. So we get 7. So we got, goodness, I don't know why that keeps saying that, sorry. So we got 7 degrees Fahrenheit. Put that unit back on there. Now it says find the difference of temperatures between the 2 months with the lowest temperature. So what has the lowest temperature? That is January. And what is that? That's a -8. And then my second lowest is December. And because I am finding the difference, we're going to subtract. So this double negative here changes to a plus, so -8 plus 4. Now you have different signs, so subtract. 8 minus 4 is 4. Keep the sign of the bigger number, so negative. So what's the difference? -4 degrees Fahrenheit. Example 7, the coldest temperature ever recorded in the U.S. was -80 degrees Fahrenheit in Alaska. The warmest temperature ever recorded was 134 degrees Fahrenheit in California. How many degrees warmer is 134 than than -80? So keep that in the order. We have 134. And we have -80. So the question becomes, do we need to add these or do we need to subtract them? This is kind of the same concept as this one right here, right? You have in a thermometer, you've got 0 degrees Fahrenheit. You have 134 up here. You've got -80 down here. So one of them is going up. One of them is going down because they're going in opposite directions. We are going to subtract those. So just like many of these before, we have a double negative. So this turns to 134 plus 80. So I'm going to stack these this time. 4 and 0 is 4. 3 and 8 is 11. Carry your 1. 1 and 1 is 2. So this equals 200. And 14. And then I'm in Fahrenheit again. So degrees Fahrenheit. And then last one, translate the phrase to an algebraic expression. We're going to use x to represent a number. So we have the sum of -5 and a number. The sum means to add. So add -5. And then we're calling a number x. Subtract a number from 20. You have that key word of from, so this is where we are starting. So I've got -20, we're subtracting, and we're subtracting a number, and we're calling a number x. All right, that's all we got for this lesson. As usual, rewind this video, play it back as much as you need to, and if you have any questions, either message me on Remind or send me an email.